So let me take you on an almost 40-year journey of my own life in counseling. For the last several decades, I have been doing 5-day intensives with couples who were dealing with a man who had a pornography addiction, committed ongoing infidelity, had intimacy anorexia, that he was intentionally starving his wife of spiritual, physical, and emotional intimacy. And he did this by being too busy for her, blaming her, withholding love, withholding praise, withholding emotions, withholding physical intimacy, controlling her with anger or silence or being critical. This is what I've been working with. And all of these women experience trauma and betrayal from their husbands. I am so glad you're with us at Healing Time today. This could be one of those life-changing conversations, especially if you're a woman who's looking for her spouse. Well, I'm sure if you have a daughter, or you have a granddaughter, or you're unmarried and you're trying to find Mr. Right, it's a legitimate desire. I just want to validate that. It's a legitimate desire to find a godly man who can share his life with you. There's nothing wrong about that. God made you to want that. I wanted my daughter Hadassah to find the right man, and I am so blessed that she did. She has a great husband, and I'm so happy. I just spent time with him this weekend. It was great. Her life and ours are much better with her husband chasing it because he is a Mr. Right. But you need to be able to find out, are they Mr. Right, or is this guy just kind of cloaked? Okay, that's not always everyone's story. However, I put together Finding Mr. Right so that you could be able to distinguish between Mr. Wrong and Mr. Right. So let me take you on an almost 40-year journey of my own life in counseling. For the last several decades, I have been doing 5-day intensives with couples who were dealing with a man who had a pornography addiction, committed ongoing infidelity, had intimacy anorexia, that he was intentionally starving his wife of spiritual, physical, and emotional intimacy. And he did this by being too busy for her, blaming her, withholding love, withholding praise, withholding emotions, withholding physical intimacy, controlling her with anger or silence or being critical. Now that sounds familiar. If you're in a marriage like that, you definitely want to check out the term intimacy anorexia. But this is what I've been working with. And all of these women experience trauma and betrayal from their husbands. So many of these women in counseling would say, I wish I knew back then what I know now, because they were exposed to the partner betrayal trauma material. They were exposed to the sex addiction material. They were exposed to married and alone material. And it's like, gosh, I wish I could have asked the right questions. I wish then I could have asked better questions earlier, is what they said. I wish I would have known before I gave him my heart, before I gave the ring, okay? Because they didn't have the insight of even the thing about men versus boys when they were younger. They just thought all males were men, and they're not. And that's one of like many things that you learn in Finding Mr. Right. I have been petitioned and commissioned by these women who have had their lives destroyed to create something for women of any age that finds herself unmarried for any reason, to be able to go on a journey, but know what she's actually looking for. You know, it's difficult if you don't know what you're looking for and all you're looking at is a gender. There's so much more to finding Mr. Right, or even how he makes you feel. Now, there's no guarantees, but this several-hour course is changing lives for women all over the world. I mean, they really get lit up when they watch this. Even my staff, when they watch, like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that I could ask that. I didn't know I could do that. Okay, so you can. And they do it online in groups, and they're telling us they are being very grateful just for a nugget. I mean, the nugget here and here and here, it's full of wisdom that you can add to your arsenal to make the best choice. And some have ended relationships once they asked the questions that they would never even thought to ask, because the man wasn't going to tell. Okay, why would he tell something that's dark when he's pursuing a woman? He would rather keep it in the dark, and that doesn't work for the women long term. And I am confident there are plenty of really good men out there, and I would even say godly men, okay? Finding your man of God is a journey. So this is helping women understand the difference between a boy, a man, and a man of God. Now, these are all three different creatures, even though they are all males. They are not all men, and they are not all men of God. Those are three separate creatures. And knowing what to look for improves your results, okay? That makes you smarter as you go through the process of dating or courting. And some finding Mr. Right, that helps you to become Mrs. Right for somebody. So there's some information for you there about yourself. So from all of the pain and mistakes, I'm talking about 5,000 women have experienced. This is where finding Mr. Right came from. There were principles they followed that were not the best of ideas, and they had the absolute worst results, and it destroyed their lives and their families. Had they known the things that are in Mr. Right, they could have saved themselves so much pain. Honestly, my hope is having this conversation today is that every woman in church would have this information, that you would start your ministry in your church, in your home, online, somewhere. And you would just reach out to a group of women and say, let's go through this workbook together. Let's download this. Let's do this work so that we can prepare ourselves. The scripture talks a lot about preparing. If you're going to build a tower, know what it's going to cost. Know what the labor is going to be. Well, dating is the most important thing you're building towards a marriage. You're building something that's going to last decades, hopefully. You're building something you want to end your life with, invest your time with, have babies with, have grandchildren with. That's the biggest decision. And let me ask you a question. Where are you getting trained? Who's helping you? And in most churches, they basically say, just don't have sex and that's it. They don't ask you any questions. That's not training. Okay, so if you're a woman who for the first time is going towards this process, this will help you. Christ wants us to be happy and fulfilled in our marriage. However, we live in a free society and we have free will to educate ourselves in any process we're about to undertake. Like if you want to be financially smart, you read financial books. If you want to be relationally smart, you will need to get relational information. And ask yourself, who's training the women in the church to date well and have healthy relationships, have boundaries, and honor Christ?